My name is William Ransom, and I am overwhelmed with gratitude for being included in the Social Justice Billboard Project being presented by Northeast Sculpture. The call to participate felt like an honor and an opportunity, but it's also a call to action. I feel a duty and a responsibility to speak up and speak out. It's not just a privilege to have my work up there on the billboard for so many eyes to see. It's an obligation. Now is the time for us to be shouting from the rooftops at the top of our lungs. When I first heard from John Hawk at Northeast Sculpture asking me if I'd be interested in doing a billboard, my immediate answer, without hesitation, was a simple and solid yes. I've never done a billboard. I rarely work flat. I'm a sculptor. But the chance to be involved so directly at the site where George Floyd was brutally murdered was the answer to a question that I'd been asking myself for weeks. How do I get involved from 1,000 miles away? My first instinct, of course, was to go to my studio. But I was at a loss materially. How could I begin to address the anguish and anger and sadness with my usual material set? I had thought about reaching out to John to see if I could get my hands on some material with some specificity, something that was directly tied to the site, derived from the context there in Minneapolis. Because I usually like to work with materials that have some specific history or that have been acculturated by context. But here I was looking at what I had at hand and feeling like none of the materials that I had were up to the task. So I began to spend a lot of time thinking about the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that George Floyd spent with that man, that police officer's knee pressed into his neck. And I was thinking about the visual notation of 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and it struck me how it's the same notation as chapter and verse. And now, I'm not a particularly religious person. I'm not the kind of person who cracks open the Bible looking for answers, but from what I've come to understand about George Floyd, he was a deeply religious person, and I felt pretty sure that Jesus would have something to say here. I discovered that very few books in the Bible even make it all the way to chapter 8, verse 46, but the Gospels of Luke and John both did, and they had something to say to me. And I thought that the words of George Floyd that we all heard on that excruciating video were deserving of their own book. We are now living in the Gospel of George, and we are all writing it together, chapter by chapter and verse by verse. Thank you for your support of the Social Justice Billboard Project from Northeast Sculpture.